We'll be a little late, so let's get started. Review our minutes. I tried to condense them a little more this week, or this month.
You do a very
Small
nice
novel.
job on that, Beth. I just had one change.
Okay.
And that's on the community garden. It says, spots will be available, I think you said spots may be available, but I don't know about it right now.
Okay. Okay.
Pictures, AI.
Yeah.
The vegetation would held up very well.
These big spots,
Yeah.
right in front of the vegetation. They're deep. I love the vegetation. Right there. I'd love to saw the whole thing.
These have a big table down there. It's
See the
just-
holes, these holes, that was surprising.
Not entirely.
No,
Because when the flow comes down, if it hits something that's not quite laminate, it'll start to
true.
track.
It was
Those are from Ken.
It's impressive.
Everyone have a chance to review? Any, other than the garden plot clarification?
I make a motion to accept the minutes as adjourned, or as a amendment.
Is there a second?
I could second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
I'll abstain since I wasn't here.
Tom?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, second thing, storm damage review with Emily Benson, Town Emergency Management Director. That's your title, right?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Thank you for doing that.
Attorney
Came
Russell.
on, there's COVID, and then it was a massive event. Hi, guys.
Hello.
So I reached out to Mike, and I think Ken's certainly been involved in documenting some of the damage, which was really helpful. Right now, what I sort of, basically the past week or so, it was, we toured around town with officials from Homeland Security and Emergency Management Office. There was some initial sort of damage assessment is what they were doing, taking pictures. Brought them, looking at the town park. We didn't look specifically at the falls, but we had pictures from you all. And then I guess it was so interesting that then the director of Homeland Security and Emergency Management came up the assistant director, and some other folks. So it was pretty much Gary and I going around, the road agent, going around and touring some of the biggest damages that we saw from the floods. Now, the next step in this is basically, the state of New Hampshire has to bring forward at least $2.5 million in damages to be designated as a federal disaster. All of that information goes up to FEMA. On a county level, we have to have at least $300,000 worth of damage. We don't see, I mean, just from my sort of knowledge of Jackson and stories around, I don't think that's going to be a problem. But FEMA officials come in tomorrow, and we're meeting at 9 o'clock here in the town offices. And I'm not exactly sure how that meeting goes. This is all a new process to me. Whether we will be, from what I understand, we will be taking them out to view damages again, and maybe again. And so they're trying to, Congresswoman Custer's office of representative is going to be at that meeting as well. And I've been working with Chuck Henderson. Everything's trying to be expedited, and the holidays certainly did not help at all in the process. So what I would like to do with you all tonight is just sort of double check some amounts that you all brought forward and get a clarification on some other questions and damages and how you sort of operate with the town, road crew, and budget lines and stuff like that, so we're not duplicating efforts. So right now, in specific to the town park, Gary gave me an estimate of about $5,000 for the access road down there. You all don't have anything to do with the maintenance of that road down, right? That's solidly the highway department.
Yep.
Okay. So there is some question that kind of culvert thing that comes up right at the top of the. Yeah. You all don't have any knowledge or.
No, that just connects I thought that just connects the culverts that.
Well, that's apparently, it might be something to do with the phone. So I think that's been settled, but there is, again, we're always looking at kind of the jurisdiction on this. There's some question if it was a DOT thing, was it a town thing, and now I just wanted to clarify that didn't involve you all. But going to the town park, Ben, I think you had sent, or maybe Brian had sent me information. The Riverwalk got really hit hard. $27,000 was what you all had with Recon Trails, but it would not involve all of that.
Yeah,
Roughly,
that was
the excavator.
work that was included in that.
Okay.
So that's just what went into it in July.
Do you have any idea what it would take to, and when we're looking at these different damages, apparently the deal is, we're trying to look at, could there be possibility to upsize culverts in different places?
Right.
This is one of the big questions that, in the email that I got for this meeting tomorrow, it's to restore things to the condition they were in before the flooding. I would like to push on that a little bit. Why just restore it to what it was when we know that it blew out? That was, I don't know what the classification of that event was, 500-year, what it was. We all know it seems like 500 years is going by like that these days. But all of this, however that works out, is also informing, we are updating our hazard mitigation plan starting in April. So however this process rolls out with restoring things to the way they were, I'm going to definitely be getting in touch with you all to, if we can't get things upsized or dealt with, we want to definitely make sure that's in our hazard mitigation plan, because there were culverts in there that definitely were not on our radar at all in the last hazard mitigation plan. But back to the Riverwalk, should I say like 20,000? I mean, they're literally like trying to add up the numbers to get to that.
I had a brief conversation with the contractor And he was hesitant to want to rebuild it the same way, just,
That's what I was wondering.
and even so just that, the addition of a geocell or something to retain the depth of the fill that gets added in there.
Okay.
Because if you look at the damage, it's like, it just scoured
It's-
that, and because it was loose,
Yeah,
there was nothing retaining it, so
Okay.
I think if there was, and in hindsight, so I mean, maybe it's good that it happened so soon, or not, but.
I don't think anything's
we're looking for
stopped
bright sides all the
I
time.
know, but I think that's wishful thinking,
Yeah.
like, when you're dealing with that volume of
it.
water,
Yeah,
so outside of raising the bank,
Yeah,
I think that's going to be a perennial problem. Especially since that field becomes a catchment basin for when the brook goes, so
yeah.
if it's not coming from the Wildcat, it's coming down Switchback, so.
Yeah. Well, if I were to say 23,000, knocking off a little bit of the excavation,
Well, it's the bridge work,
excavator
right?
work.
That
I mean, the
that
bridge work was
yeah.
the bulk, and the bridge held.
Yeah.
Yes,
Right?
and that's separate from that number.
Oh, that is separate, okay,
Yes. Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, I would just go 25, why not?
Yeah,
I mean-
I mean,
It's not gonna get less expensive in terms of.
Right?
buying
No,
materials.
everything is, from whenever it was put in, has gone up in price.
Well, that's exactly it,
So
yeah.
unless they add in an inflation calculus on their own every time you do something, you're
Yeah,
better off not downgrading it.
No, we should have done it ourselves.
Yeah,
My guess is you're underestimating.
right.
We need to really improve this. I mean, Tropical Storm Irene was, what, 12 years ago? This, I can't remember, it was June or July. We had some pretty serious flooding, not at this magnitude.
yeah, it was really interesting. We were right at the edge, because all the FEMA stuff was going on in other towns.
Yeah.
Yeah, and those other floods in the summer were like short bursts. I mean, that was just incredible volumes of, and if that happens consistently, like,
That's not atypical to watch these flows go.
yeah,
I mean, the Saco River gauge in Bartlett went from 250 CFS to 26,000 CFS in about 10 to 12 hours, but then it came down almost as fast.
right.
Yeah,
But I think if you look at a lot of these, I mean, of course, the ground was frozen and that sort of stuff.
yeah, there's some kind of interesting.
Yeah, but if you look at a lot of these floods, they're very flashy.
Yeah,
But they're gonna be
So,
more frequent.
shall I keep it at 27 then?
I think it's, I mean,
He felt confident in saying that it wasn't going to be anything lower
Okay.
than that, so.
Okay. And,
The only reason I push this is I think we're gonna have the same issue with Jackson Falls.
well, so that's the next thing. So, I don't have, and actually on these 3 different locations, the photographs that you all sent to me, I've sent to the state, so they have, so basically all these different locations for property owners, they have different case numbers. For the municipalities, they've got different case numbers. And the initial damage survey, I said we definitely took a hit to the town recreation areas. So, so that's on their radar. But in terms of Jackson Falls,
I guess before we move off of the Riverwalk,
oh, okay,
if funds, I haven't had a chance to check in with the Methods about if they've applied, because the Riverwalk is
oh.
on their property,
Right, and there's,
and the town just has the town holds an easement there
holds an easement, okay.
for the pathway. And
Is that a deeded easement?
yes,
Then you have rights.
Right?
Yeah.
If it's deeded, okay.
just going through whatever our permitting process was, that they, as the property owner, needed to sign off
Yeah.
on their portion, but because it exists on town property and private property, I don't know how that complicates I mean, I'm sure it certainly complicates things.
But the fact that it's deeded changes the equation somewhat, because that means the town actually has ownership and a right there.
And
You want-
you suffer damages.
Yeah, and you suffer damages.
I just didn't want to get into a case of where they're making claims on it.
Yeah.
So that's, I'm glad you brought that up, yeah, because as we know, there's a lot of other scenarios like that going on. I have not heard anything from Athats, in terms of, I mean, I guess they would be really more focused on their,
Yeah.
like, did water go into the basement or something like that, but, so certainly keep that in mind, and that's something that was shared, as we looked, as we got up towards Prospect Farm, and we can go into that, but some of the different challenges of
Okay.
different rights, so thanks for that. So Jackson Falls.
My take is as follows. We've been trying to protect the roots up there by putting down a lot of wood chips, which
That's
is
what I
work.
was thinking, yeah.
However, it's very clear that that's not gonna work in the future. Only on that, I mean, I just circulated some pictures here. And because we have two problems here. One is with the roots exposed like this and with the amount of traffic, it's gonna kill the trees.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm just shocked how they held up. I mean, the trees that
Yeah.
didn't go.
And somehow where the bench is, that tree is already struggling, and if you take a look at the pictures I just sent around here, you can see, all of those roots are now exposed, and it's a primary place that a lot of people walk out to. But to really do this right, considering the amount of traffic that goes there, we're probably looking at $30,000-$40,000, I would guess. And I'm just making that number up, but,
To do what though?
we need to go back and figure out a way to harden that trail so it can take traffic and so that it doesn't wash out. Because what is happening here, and I know because some of us have been down there, we spend a lot of volunteer time each year throwing wood chips down, and they hardly make it through a year. We cannot expect to continue to just rely on volunteer help to protect those trees out there and getting wood chips for free and putting it out. It's not a solution that's gonna work into the future unless we get a lot of people to volunteer to go down and do this. But these trees are at a lot of risk right now. So the strategy we have currently, my humble opinion is we need to look at a totally different strategy because this area takes the brunt of that water going through there. There's no question. You can see the amount of erosion.
Oh,
Some of our revegetation helped there, but that doesn't change the fact that we have a lot of people that want to go through there. We need a trail system that's going to be able to take the traffic, and it's going to be able to take future floods like this, because this is not, this was the worst I've seen it here outside of Tropical Storm Irene, but I've seen it high like this before.
Okay.
So are you thinking with that money, like hiring an outside group for consulting and restoration? Or are you thinking,
Well, what are you gonna save? I don't see that throwing money at it is gonna save those trees. The river is gonna do what it does.
No, Dick, I think the challenge we have here is putting down a system that can take the volume of foot traffic on that trail, unless we're gonna close that area down just for resource protection, which I think politically would be very difficult to say the least.
Yeah.
But it needs something that can take the floods and can take the foot traffic.
Well, why can't you get people to walk on the rocks?
I think for multiple reasons. One is sometimes the river's too high so that they can't. And a lot of people are using the trails as we want them to. They will get out. But anybody that's coming down from the parking lot, I spend a lot of time watching what's happening, but they come down from the parking lot and they will move. A lot of people just walk up the pass as intended. If it's a nice sunny day, they will go out on the rocks if the rocks are accessible. The rocks are also quite slippery at times,
Yeah,
particularly if they're wet.
that would be a concern.
But the truth of the matter is, we have a lot of people walking on those trails. And to just build a trail that goes down to the rocks and then closing off the rest of it would be one heck of a management issue, to say the least. Because when you get families that come in, or older people that come in, that's not what they're gonna want to do or try to do. And then we'll get a lot of bootleg trail traffic through that wooded area. I think it's just a reality.
Well, obviously, I think probably getting somebody in there can give us some ideas as to what we could do, but I like the idea of doing more sod, which has a cost associated with that in terms of materials and all that, which we know, because we've done it several times now, and multiply that, and then I'm thinking like the pine nuggets or something like that in the pathway, and you get bags of it, and they're very easy to maneuver, 3 cubic, because it's not that long an area that we actually put the wood chips in. They're much easier to handle. And because I get what you're saying about the wood chips, those things are really hard to move. So that was something I was thinking is more planting, more sod. We do need more people to help because it works.
Yeah, but the sod, I mean, if you take a look at the trail itself, very similar to what happened on the trails that Ben worked with down at the park. And you can see this on a lot of erosion on trails, and so, it's incised a little bit, and the water picks that up and makes that the new, I mean, just take a look at this. It went right down where we put all of our wood chips. It was using that as the easiest place for the water to move. The same as once it eroded away where we put all of that stuff down, and the rest of that force just kept digging deeper and deeper and deeper. That's where the trail is. And unless you get something that's a hardened trail, and sod cannot be the hardened trail because there's too much foot traffic for sod to work on the trail. I think the sod works in keeping people where we want them on the trail, but that's a different issue than what the trail surface is going to be. I mean, and I don't know what the solution is right now, but.
Well, that's what I was wondering. For purposes of this meeting I have tomorrow, and then I could see like more direct contact with you all. That idea of here we have this very popular town recreation site.
Wild and Scenic River.
Well, so that's where start looking at these different avenues of funding possibilities. If it's not, if there's something with FEMA, and that was just kind of mentioned that, we've got National Historic District impacts to some homes around the falls. There are different avenues for funding, and this is what everyone's trying to see. Well, you might, be able to at least restore it a little bit for next summer kind of thing with some FEMA funding.
Yeah.
But then looking at the long term, what could really help? Because I'm thinking, do you need to approach it like the flume? Or whatever they're doing up at Glen Ellis Falls, serious, I don't know, kind of the blowhole scene of Acadia, where you have cements, walkways or boardwalks kind of thing. So, so does that make sense? I'll say sort of at least $30,000 to $40,000, but for temporary fix, it's not sustainable the way it is right now. So.
Right. Or possibly, is it ever sustainable?
Well, that's the next question.
But
With a
You
lot
just,
again,
you just let it go, and each time you come back, you just throw your, mediation around, remediation.
Yeah.
But you always have to, you have to choose something. There has to be, there's only so many options, and you have to just decide what it is and know what you're not allowing to happen or what you're accepting can happen.
Or what we know works.
Yeah, it's fair to say that, the wood chips get washed away, but so would any other product except for some sort of hard set rock, which then again, we watch boulders the size of these tables move down the river, so tell me that's gonna, so I think you have to just accept that there's just inherent risk in any one of those options. The only one, you could say, no, people can't access it, it's been damaged, and it's a damaged area, and no one's gonna like that, but it is one of the options. You can continue to do the wood chips and see that it has benefited, and every once in a while you're gonna lose them, but do you wanna spend more money on another product that does it a little bit better, but will certainly get washed away when, nothing's gonna stop that.
If you were to simply restore to before.
Well, that's the mandate now for this.
Well, that's what it sounds like, yeah. Now,
Bring it back to what.
that's literally from the email, and this is where there could, I want to hear that out of a person sitting in front of me tomorrow, to make sure that that's
Right,
true.
because I think we'd have to look for other funding
I think
if we
so.
want to do an upgrade there for whatever,
Right.
a rope walk or.
And this is what I'm going to ask them in some of these different scenarios, what are some avenues? And certainly, I mean, this is where it's kind of great with, you know, Annie Custer, having ties to Jackson, her, you know, rep has been really responsive to us, you know, coming to the fire station and just sort of hopefully expediting. There's a congressional, and I don't have my fire station folder, but there's, you might know, some like congressional allocations of funding for specific projects. And it's, I'm thinking about the sidewalks up in Berlin, the heated sidewalks, some of those different, that may not have been that line of funding. But knowing the big challenges at the falls, who knows, maybe there's some other opportunities that we can be at. But at least to bring it forward, to let them know what you're dealing with, that, and it's a wild and scenic river and all those different concerns. I think just specific to the wood chips, if you were to do what you did, to at least lay those down, what would be that cost?
Well, that was a $0 cost because the wood chips were donated, and it was basically
Right, but
a handful of
It's
us
the
on the
manpower,
board, yeah.
So that's.
So
why-
literally labor and materials, if you were to price that out,
Right.
and maybe you could, you know,
And I
that's
would,
multiple
I would
years
suggest,
worth of,
but I'd suggest those pine nuggets, because you get those 3 cubic bags, they're so easy to move by comparison.
Because they're
I
like,
can move them, yeah. And they-
anything that's
and it
light
covers
though
a
is
half.
gonna erode faster, yeah.
yeah, I've never
Anything
done
that's-
that. I don't know what
No.
It's
that
something
is.
that's
Tom.
a quick fix.
I think the other challenge out there though is even with the wood chips, it would take us weeks to months before we actually put them out because of the amount of volunteer time that's available.
well,
It's
yeah,
hard
but
to
get down.
but we're not asking as a
Yeah.
volunteer, it's more like
Right.
you're subbing it out, like.
So we gotta
We
figure out how
had
much.
3 years worth of work just got washed away, it wasn't
Yeah.
one.
Yeah, I would
thing.
say, here's a chance, you know what, we're not gonna rely on volunteers.
Right,
We're
so
gonna
it's-
have to pay because we've had so much help over the past.
Yeah, I mean, and that's how that would work.
But
so-
that's fair to bill for that.
Correct, and it's not like what it took us to do 1 year, because it's 5 years worth of embedded wood chips, it's not, you don't get that in one, so it's,
Right.
It's gonna be a very thick layer. of
yeah,
chips.
multiple years, and whatever the distance is, and, I mean, we've probably spread 6 loads of, 1-ton truckloads of wood chips over the last 3 years, because it's usually 2 loads per year,
Mhm.
Yeah. It's at least that, yeah.
and I don't know the equation for that, but, to put.
I kind of recall what we paid for playground grade wood chips, but that was a long time ago,
Yeah.
playground, preschool.
I mean, the problem with wood chips is this wood that wants to float. So it's gonna be the fastest, just pouring gravel out there would probably go as well, but
Mhm.
there's
I mean, I
no,
feel like so much of this work is like,
anything
just
pine
throw the money
cones.
in the river because it's all gonna wash
Yeah,
out.
So just,
and
just do
that's-
a reasonable amount and just, don't whine when it gets washed out, that's all.
And there was the study that was done, just before I was on the board, about hardening a lot of this stuff and so forth. I don't remember that there's any numbers attached to it for cost of,
No.
if anybody was on the board then. You know the.
No, we
report.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah.
I mean, we could also, I could just say, I met with you all last night, and sort of the time frame for, if you could get an estimate on 6 one-ton truckloads of wood
Try
chips.
to get out.
Because the other issue, and it's one that I suggested to Ben that we discuss, is
Mhm.
there's sections of this trail system we should be closing down right now until we can fix the problem, because right now there's no snow, people are walking out there, there's
Yeah.
still a number of folks that are walking, when these roots are frozen, all we're gonna do is kill the trees that are out there right now.
Oh, and actually, thinking of closing down, I should mention to you all that I did close down the river walk on the MWVH friendly site. We had posted that as an accessible trail, so I said close to flood damage, but.
For your purposes though, you don't need necessarily specifics of what material it is or any of that at this point, you just basically need
I just need a number.
to know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just something to put forward, I think.
And it's gonna include labor.
Right, yes.
Yeah, oh yeah, I would, put it together. I will have a little bit better idea. And again, that's all in your line item. right, in the Conservation Commission. I mean, Gary wouldn't be putting in for anything. This is where I just want to make sure there's nothing going on.
Well, when we take things for the falls, we usually take it from the
Water.
fund that we have,
Yeah,
yeah.
Oh, right, yeah.
But that fund is pretty small and it has to maintain at least 10 or 12,000 in it.
Okay.
So there's not a lot of
That's why-
leeway in that fund,
But I
yeah.
don't think we have much in the way of line items except for the
Yeah,
mowing at Prospect Farm.
because what's in that fund now, maybe 20,000?
I
I don't remember.
can't recall, but I believe that there's 7,000 to 8,000 available.
But once that's gone, because that's used for signs and other stuff,
Right.
if you burn that all up right
everything out.
now,
So.
because there's gonna be constant management issues there.
Oh, yeah.
That's gonna hit into that fund out over time.
Yes, we don't want to tap into that.
So when do you need that number by?
So, well, I don't expect it before 9 tomorrow. I mean, unless somebody wants to Google one-time wood chips.
I mean, would someone texted Ryman, would he know?
No, Ryman does it for free. I mean, you just,
But I know, would he have a ballpark? Would he be like, oh, probably
we
this?
can just call it Lucy's.
Yeah, I was thinking like Eric Chandler or.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Lucy's
so-
or.
I mean, if you're able to shoot me a text like tonight that I can bring to the meeting tomorrow, but I will be following up with you all after the meeting tomorrow, because I'll know a lot more. But that would be helpful. So, and then I guess moving on to, unless there's something else, Prospect Farm.
Question I have on Prospect Farm is, I know the Gary is already fixed up to the, but I think it's more of a temporary fix.
Well, that's exactly it. So a lot of the work that was done, it was just simply to just sort of temporarily fix stuff, make sure things weren't caving in the canyons and stuff like that. That is where again, that would fall in his, budget, and his cost estimates, because that is, I've got that in the town, or just kind of the road, highway department area. But beyond there,
Well, that was the second question I was gonna ask, because a lot of the folks that go up and use Prospect Farm during the summer as well as during the winter,
yeah,
go from there onto the Forest Service property, particularly if they go out like Boggy Brook.
right,
And there's damage out there.
yep,
Of course, there's been quite a bit of damage on other Forest Service roads.
yeah,
Like North Hall is a total mess, South Hall has got some serious issues, et
oh,
cetera.
okay,
So there's a whole bunch of stuff on Forest Service roads that are in addition. But Prospect Farm, even though we have a boundary with the Forest Service, 95% of the users up there are using both parcels. They're not using it
yeah,
in a singular way.
Yeah.
Most people don't go up and just go to the boundary and come back.
right.
So,
And that's what I was explaining to the emergency management folks from the state, like, here's this incredible kind of land use scenario that's going on
Yeah.
for this town recreation site. We've got multiple jurisdictions, Valentine, I mean.
Yeah.
The private landowner, and then, so,
well, it's a Class 6 road up to Camp Gout and actually going up straight.
yeah,
A lot of people think Boggy Brook is a Class 6, but it's not. That's
No.
actually a Forest Service road.
exactly,
It was built
yeah,
with permission from the town. At
yeah.
least that's my understanding.
And that's just what Gary explained to me,
Yeah.
yeah, and that, I kind of been aware of that, and so there's some other things that he's, dealing with.
Well, if you go out onto the Forest Service, like at the first bridge and the
Mhm.
second bridge, there's some minor erosion there.
Mhm.
But if they don't fix those things, it's just gonna get worse real quick.
Worse and worse,
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
But specific to Prospect Farm, I mean, Quail Trail and some of those.
Most of
different things.
those, I mean, fortunately, Jackson Ski Touring Foundation was up there putting in water bars and
Right.
redoing all the drainage going up toward Hall's Ledge.
Yeah,
So the bulk of that actually
did pretty well.
pretty well.
Okay,
A lot of the Forest Service roads and some of the others were not ditched
okay,
and had been ignored for a long time, which meant when this came, it just got worse.
okay. So you don't, see really any funding needed Prospect Farm? That you all would be responsible for? To restore?
Outside of, and it's minor, and I don't know whether Gary's gonna get it,
Okay.
just before the turn where you go up to Camp Gout, the steep,
Yep,
there was a blowout in the culvert there.
okay,
And I don't know whether this is in Gary's or not, but that is the access that gets you to the summer parking lot. And that is minor compared to between Johnny White's house
Oh, yeah,
and the Valentine parking lot.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, so.
But that culvert should be replaced, and there's a great big divot, and I know that the Ski Touring Foundation is trying to figure out with Gary whether he's gonna get to that or not.
Okay. All right, so it sounds like, yeah, Prospect Farm pretty squarely sits in the highway department zone or the Forest Service.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, I think that's all I had, unless you guys have other
What
questions.
was the federal culvert program that we signed a letter of intent?
That was-
Inspecting the culvert or category?
That was just like very early stages for the Building Resilient Infrastructure program. So that was just, I mean, there's no funding attached to that at the moment, so I
Okay,
think they're just gathering signatures.
so they couldn't help us with culverts now.
One thing that was shared with me, and I forget who shared it, I'll have to look back at my emails, but there's a culvert, like, training program of some sort, installing WISE installation of culverts. You all haven't heard about that, or?
No.
Well, there's,
Yeah, some sort of, it sounded like more, it was more along the lines of the highway department folks.
I think there's two elements. One is getting them so that they can withstand the climate change effects of
Yeah,
greater precip. The other is a lot of culverts fail the aquatic organism passage criteria.
oh, that's right, there's
Yeah.
that piece, yeah. So, and this is where I'm really curious, in terms of, you know, the increased river flows changing, just regulations. Walking one of the trails with you at one point for ski touring with Joe Gill with the Forest Service is the bridges, the new regulations for bridges. And so this is where I'm sort of wondering if some of these things, you know, if there are some new regulations that apply to culverts, how we could, you know, we need to follow that. Again, this is, you know, goes from the town rec to then the highway department, and I've been looking at a lot of culverts and I'm learning a lot, more than I ever thought I'd know. So I'll keep you, if there is some training that Gary does and how that could possibly, you know, roll out into like Prospect Farm, and certainly we'll see if you do that, then that increases your eligibility possibly for some other funding. That's sort of the way those things work. The other thing is, just as I mentioned, the hazard mitigation plan. Being in touch with you all, thinking hazards, thinking the falls, we could work that into an action item. And when you have the action items listed in your hazard mitigation plan, then you can directly, you know, when you look for some of these different funding avenues, you can, noting that it's already in your hazard mitigation plan, again, sort of increases those different points that you can get. So there's that. But otherwise, I was just curious, one of the things that the emergency management folks were asking is they were looking at rainfall amounts, you know, as specific as they could get. They had the rain gauge up at Hermit Lake was what they were using. I think it was like 8.4, 8.5. Are there any, like, is the school still doing their rain weather
Not that I know
No.
monitoring?
of. I heard an official 6.24 or
yeah.
something like that for Jackson, but I don't know where that number.
Yeah, but that's not, you know, for this storm, that's not terribly accurate for two reasons. One is the ground was frozen, so the sheet went off. But the second thing is, particularly when you get to like Prospect and higher elevations, you had a couple inches of water equivalent in a snowpack.
Well, and that was my
So you have
next thing,
6
yeah.
plus you have 2 or 3 inches there. So this storm was more like an 8 or 10 inch rainstorm because it was warm rain coming down on snow that was melting. So it was the 6 plus the 2 or 3 inches of water equivalent that you had in the snowpack.
And we had a couple people that had over 7,
Yeah.
measured 7.2.
But a precip gauge doesn't tell you that unless you had the water equivalent of the snowpack
Right.
in addition.
Yeah, I mean, we had, the mountains lost all their stuff.
Right,
Yeah.
I
exactly.
mean,
Yeah.
how much water did they blast on top of the mountains?
Yeah.
So apparently, well, the Forest Service, and I haven't had a chance to, I don't know, contact Jim Innes, so
Yeah.
But there's a gauge at the bridge over the Wildcat that they have been monitoring river flow or some sort of flow. Do you know anything about that?
I do, and I asked them when we were out there,
Okay.
and it really is not calibrated for that. Your best gauge,
Okay.
and to prorate, would be to take the gauge, the USGS gauge on the Saco.
On the Saco,
in
okay.
Bartlett.
So that's what we've been doing.
Yeah, and that thing went from, as I mentioned, it was
Oh,
around
yeah,
260 to around 26,000.
yeah.
And what, is that a gauge underneath the Ellis on Route 16?
There used to be a gauge, the state dropped a lot of gauges, but there used to be one on the Ellis that was between AMC's at Pinkham Notch and Dana Place. They dropped a bunch of them when their funding sources ran out, so
Okay.
we don't have one on the Ellis.
Wow.
But I do know that when we went to look, I mean, when we went for snowmaking, the Jackson Ski Touring Foundation, you're limited as to how much water you can take because there were no gauges here.
That's what I was thinking, after all that
Yeah,
work, it's
but-
like, oh, we knew the
But
river
we
flow.
do have a good proxy, which is the gauge on the Saco. I mean, they're parallel watersheds, they drain off fairly steep mountains. They're not exact, but they're very good proxies. So
Okay.
like for snowmaking, for Jackson Ski Touring, they have to use the gauge there, and if it gets below a certain level, then you can't make snow and that sort of stuff. But that's a good proxy,
Mhm.
and you can prorate it by watershed size.
Is there still one on the East Branch?
I don't think there is, Dick. The state is now coming up with some funding sources. I know that they just put one in on the Swift.
Oh, okay.
So they are, but the
Well,
best,
there used to be one right where, over at Stillwater, just below the bridge.
well, the Whitewater boaters had marked on the bridge different heights,
Yeah.
and they use that for boating, but that does not give you the kind of,
Oh, it didn't give you the. flow.
yeah, and they used to have, in the Bartlett Bridge was the same way, they used to,
They would mark it?
yeah, the Whitewater, if it was above X, then it was boatable, and if
Oh,
it was
okay.
above such and such, then it was becoming a dangerous kind of boatable
Mm.
situation. But I don't believe that there ever was a gauge on the Swift outside of what the Whitewater boaters used as an
The
informal.
Swift, no, the East
No, East
Branch
Yeah,
did have one, because I can remember the box on the side of the,
and it could be, there were a bunch of them that got dropped.
and
Yeah.
I was wondering, because I don't think I've seen it even.
I don't think, I'm almost certain, I mean, we could look it up in 2 seconds here on the computer, because you can go onto the USGS and find out where all the gauges are, but I don't believe it's active right now. But I can check real quick when I get home.
Well, I think that's all I got.
So Emily, just one question, can we, for Jackson Falls, can we include materials that we put in for sod and that sort of ferns that we lost? Would that be something that would be a damage?
I mean, again, restoration, yeah.
Yeah.
You said you lost a lot of your new plantings.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so,
Supposing just the walkway.
yeah, the wood chips and the plantings and.
And if we get funding,
Mhm.
do we have to spend it on exactly that, or can we be
Oh,
a
yeah, I would
little
think
more
so.
innovative
Um,
in how we do this? Because really, there's no baseline of what was there. We're telling them what we had, but, if we were to take that money and say, no, instead of just piling a bunch of wood chips down here, why don't we,
Yeah.
rip wrap or, do something a little different, but not, but still try to upgrade while we go back to what was there.
mhm.
I mean,
You have a
some-
lot of experience with the
Having just-
federal government.
Having just gotten in Northern Border Regional, a lot of government grants, at least from my experience,
Yeah.
I don't know about this
Yeah.
FEMA, and quite frankly, I agree with you that just redoing what you did before when it's not gonna work again is kind of
This is
stupid.
what I want to try to tell them,
But usually when you put in a grant to the feds, you're allowed to shift maybe 5% from one, you have to categorize what it is, and then,
Okay,
and then when you're gonna shift, you have to have permission if you're shifting more than X%
okay.
out of one category to the next. I have no idea about the
Well,
FEMA thing.
this is
but-
it,
but
yeah.
that's
So
been
that's
my
why I
experience.
just and
Yeah.
I'm gonna ask that.
Yeah, I mean, it would be hard to believe it has to be like for like, because if someone did something truly wrong and it washed away, would they really want to give you the money to go
Do the
truly
exact
do
same
it
thing
wrong
again.
again? I mean, even if
Yeah.
it's
That's why
You
I look
didn't
at wood
know,
chips
it's
and I
ignorance.
say,
Right.
I'm not sure I want to commit more time to just
Yeah.
putting wood chips to the Atlantic Ocean.
Yeah, I mean, we've got some washout driveways and private roads, it's like, you
Please.
wanna do something else because it's just gonna happen
Please don't
again.
put the same
Yeah,
dirt in
so-
the same hole and expect it to be
So.
something different.
So I'll ask them that question and we'll see. And they might wanna come to your next meeting, so I'll just say. I mean, I'm not quite sure.
And Emily, just one follow-up question, because some of this work needs immediate, such as
Right.
what happened at Prospect.
Yeah,
You're spending money before you even have a commitment.
yeah,
And a lot of grants, but this is definitely not grant,
yeah,
but you can't start spending money until it's been approved.
right. I think there is some reimbursement.
And if you spend before, you
aspect.
can't get reimbursed.
Right, and that's the thing, so the reimbursement aspect, costs to be reimbursed. I mean, I know that Gary's dealing with, you know, all of this
Right.
work that has been going on. And it was told, I mean, when everything was going down in the river, you know, that day, you know, was getting emails, wow, you know, you guys take pictures, document everything. And Jay had the experience of going through Irene and dealing with the roads then. And so, you know, there's a whole cost code table, it's 32 pages long, on what the rates are for, you know, different types of excavators and trucks and all of that. And so that's how they would, well, and actually now I gotta see, how costs would be reimbursed.
They also have rates for volunteer time as well.
They do, okay. So that would be something where really getting into some of that detailed work. I didn't send that to you all at this point because I was thinking, let me just learn a little bit more tomorrow. But I'll send that page along to you because that's, that might be something that you can go ahead and pay, but you'll only get reimbursed at those rates, kind of thing. I'll have to see how that goes. So cost related to fee.
Who's responsible for, like, Forest Service property, you know, like Whiffordale and Hall Trail, and like all those roads that washed out with massive trenches, is that
Have you
stuff?
seen the Hall Trail?
Yeah.
There's a hole in there that you could stand in and it'd be deeper than your hip.
Oh, I went into one of them in the dark.
Yeah.
I
Oh,
recognized one of them pretty well.
all I can say is watch your face when you go down. And there's not a lot of snow. I haven't done that this year. Yeah, I'm not quite sure. I don't know if they're gonna be, I didn't even think to ask them to
Yeah,
come to this
there's
meeting.
so many
but-
places you can go.
I mean, when you have blown out trails around the forest,
Yeah.
I mean, I think of the Dry River, when that was
Yeah.
gone, just shut down
Absolutely
for years.
gone.
Yeah. I didn't even
Yeah, that's Sawyer River Road.
Yes, Dry River Road, yeah, you
4
just
years.
have to shut things down. So, all right, well, thanks.
And Emily, before you leave, and not the Conservation Commission, but
Yeah.
for like private properties or like Jackson Ski Touring Foundation, the golf course, etc.
Yeah.
What is the process for collecting?
So that's the other thing that I'm gonna be bringing up. We have these organizations.
Yeah.
And I've been in touch with Ellen a little bit, you know, she shared your email, and I forwarded that on to the public assistance line for all of this. What I'm really curious about is FEMA disaster funding really focused on like the life and death aspect and how that funding changes when it is something like trails or, you know, recreation kind of stuff. I mean, we have a number, some second homeowners, and, you know, they don't have the insurance, so then we look at some of those different things. You know, you go right to your homeowners, which usually doesn't cover floods, and then are they in the National Flood Insurance program? Some were, one person got off of it. Now apparently FEMA, there was some remapping that was done of the flood zones around town. So I'll be curious to see what they say about that tomorrow. But initially, you know, it was their second home. We need to have this work. That's like talking with the folks at the state. They have another house, right? Yes. I mean, it's literally like, do they have no home? No, they have a home. They're like, okay, well, that's,
live in it.
you go live in it. Yeah, that's your choice to have a second home, and if you don't have that insurance, how that works, so. So I mean, there's a home that literally went into the Peabody, I guess, out in Gorham, but,
Yeah,
yeah,
right.
yeah.
One of the Pike water trucks went under the bridge.
So I heard about
Yeah.
that.
There was a picture, Berlin picture, yeah.
Yeah, I saw some damage up there that you can't make sense of when you look at the pictures, it doesn't.
Yeah, and that's where these incredibly intense, incredibly localized, I don't know if you remember when Pinkham washed out, I think it was May of 2020.
Yeah.
I was literally on a Zoom call in Carter Notch at our house, and I get a call from Emergency Management in Concord, Emily, what's going on up there? 16 is washed out. And I was like, it's raining a little bit here, but it just, the storm like got caught up and just unloaded and washed things out.
But see, Jackson is prone to that because a lot of those wet storms are coming in from the southern vector,
Yep.
and your uplift is on this side. It's why Bear
And you got
Notch,
these steep-
Jackson Ski Touring Foundation a lot of times gets good snow. Prospect gets even more.
Yeah,
But this is the uplift zone, and
yeah,
that'll milk the precipitation out of it.
for the good.
Which is
For the not so
part of the
good.
reasons why the whole Prezi area got hit pretty
Yeah,
hard,
no,
like
it
Berlin
really
and here,
got it,
yeah.
so.
So it is what it is.
All right,
Thank you,
That's
Emily.
good.
yes.
Thank you for your efforts.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Thanks.
that sounds like a full-time job.
Well, it has been actually recently.
Only when you get a 500-year storm every.
Yeah, it's a good thing I'm
5
curious. I'm always curious to learn, but it was like, hey, kids are home. Oh, sorry, mom's not. Finally you're home. So, well, thanks for all you guys do, and yeah, I'll keep in touch, see what happens after tomorrow. So,
Do you need some more pictures on Jackson Park?
as long, you know what, I love to not look at a digital thing. So this is great. I can share this with them. Yeah, you sent me most of these though, right?
No, I just sent you, I think, one or two from
Okay,
there.
You're
yeah.
working on your smart.
Yeah.
So,
Learning human emotion.
yeah, this is really, oh, man, it's not good.
You only need one. Rage.
All right, thanks.
Thank you, Emily.
Yeah, bye.
Bye.
Well, I think we've covered all our targets. Prospect Farm, Jackson Falls.
Yeah, let's do it.
Well, I think on Jackson Falls, there is the question, and I don't know whether we have the power or not, but we should be closing down some sections of that trail system until something's fixed. Under the resource protection. Would not be very popular, but
The section between coming from the handicap access down to the parking lot, that section.
yeah. And then actually, as you go up toward where the steps go up, that area there isn't real, I don't know how many people have been up and through that
Yeah.
area, but that area, when you get up to where the outhouse or the porta potty was, that's in pretty good condition. When you come down off those steps,
Right.
obviously, as you can see from these pictures, that whole area down through there is eroded
Yeah.
pretty bad, but, folks aren't walking on the rocks now, they're walking the trails. It's a question whether it should be shut down until we can do something.
Yeah, you can see it from the parking lot.
Huh?
You can see it from the parking lot, it's
Yeah.
fun.
I don't like doing that, it's not very popular, but,
What, no, I mean, this might be a foolish idea, but whether or not you could get some bales of straw and just, put it down, no, that wouldn't work.
I think it's more of a hazard to walk on than anything.
and I would highly recommend we get out of the picnic table business. And the bench out there, I mean, of course, the bench is a double problem, it's bolted down, so it never disappeared, but, it does attract a lot of people out to it, and we have all kinds of roots that are exposed there, so anybody that's traversing out there is just, and those one or two trees that are out there are struggling to stay alive right now.
Well,
But,
it was bolted in, I think, without any particular permission, so I guess it could become unbolted.
yeah, and as we put together, and I know I'm somewhat delinquent because I promised to try to put together a draft, but I think when we put together the falls management plan like Prospect, that's something that we need to address. But I think the question in front of us right now is, do we want to shut down part of the Jackson Falls area? And do we need permission from the selectmen to do it?
And how do you go about doing it that's effective?
Could we just make a recommendation to the selectmen?
Yeah, that's what you would have to do. I don't think that we can go in and just say, oh, it's closed.
Yeah, I wasn't comfortable doing
Because
that.
are people just, if you close off the paths, are people just gonna come down through, the brush?
Yeah, but if you close off the path, you're
We'd have to post it properly.
guessing that you're
Yeah.
getting 60% of the people from following the rules, right? I mean, it's the best case, right?
Anytime there's a big flush of water, you get, it's like, flies going to dead meat. It's just everybody comes up to see the falls and get up, take pictures.
I mean,
And what held up the best was where it hasn't been touched. In other words, just whatever the natural growth was, held up pretty well.
You can see that on Eagle Mountain where their cart paths, which were gravel, got eroded severely. Any place that still had grass, right beside it, etc. Yes, it was damaged, but the level of damage was, you could see it actually with, the town walkway there.
mhm.
The grass stayed, but the gravel went.
Yeah, but
That's difficult.
it's kind of like, you're gonna play the game, you're gonna pay at some point.
Yeah,
It's, if you didn't do that, then we'd be complaining, like, can you believe the mud everywhere? That because they're driving the golf carts on the grass and it's mud, now we have a trench from mud, why don't they put in a gravel path? And, oh, look, now the gravel path works, until you get a flood. And that's how the falls are. I mean, one person could just sit here and listen to this and almost just laugh and be like, do you guys hear the circle that you're continuously gonna be in? But you just have to accept it. That's what it is. It's a
Yeah, you have to
circle. You
replace
can't win.
You
But
have to replace
don't
it.
be surprised. It's
Yeah.
like, it's more like when people are surprised. What do you mean you're gonna close it? It just washed out.
Have you seen it?
That's
Yeah.
part of.
The only reason you close it, it'd be a temporary closure until you,
Right, can control it. You can get it back to the point where.
where it can take the human traffic.
Yeah, I mean, if the falls are there for the trees or the falls are there for the people, that's sort of the.
And what I found out quite a while ago, if you don't say anything, you have less liability than if you put up a sign.
Yeah, well, it's like being an EMT.
I mean, I think you're right, but vice versa, if we do nothing, we're really risking
Well,
the ambience of that area, which is the trees as well as the.
yeah,
forest.
I mean, the liability part, I don't think
Yeah.
it's about, we're not thinking about the people, we're thinking about the resource.
The liability
That's
to the
correct.
trees.
Right, I know what you're saying, Dick, it's true.
But then, do we make a motion to make a recommendation that we would close down sections of the Jackson Falls for resource protection until
Till we find out what mitigation we can do.
Yeah, I think that's, I mean, at least we recommend it to the selectmen and let them see what their feeling is on it.
I just want to give Tom a chance to comment or catch you in. I'm sorry I dropped you off there. Having a short discussion about recommending to the select board to close off access to some of the trails at Jackson Falls. Just to protect routes for the moment until we have a good, I don't know, I wouldn't say mitigation, but
Or even snowpack,
yeah.
I mean,
Mm,
would help, but we don't have.
that's a good point.
Don't have any of that this year.
So that's like the parking is open,
Yeah.
river's high, and there's no snow to protect the roots. It's a lose-lose for the trees.
I think you'd even just say it's closed until we can do a full assessment of what needs to be done. So
I like
that's, like, there's still a lot of questions about what even needs to be done. So I think you'd say that.
Yeah,
And that doesn't really necessarily tie you to anything super concrete.
yeah, I think that's good wording.
And do we want to be specific, or do we want to just say certain locations, and then when the selectmen say, what are you talking about, be more specific then?
I think so,
Okay.
yeah.
Because they're amenable,
They can see it.
then
Right.
They can see the map.
we'll narrow
Then-
it down.
And we'd have to work with the selectmen and probably the police department about how to properly post it, et cetera, so that, I mean, it's no different than when we put up the handicap parking for the porta potty, and, we're reminded that, you gotta put up the official handicap sign there as well with that.
Yeah, and maybe on that note, it should be posted somewhere that, like e-news or whatever, the site that Emily mentioned, we're just making a note that, hey, the Jackson Falls has been damaged. maybe it's possible closure or closure, and here's the reason why.
Yeah, I think so, that should be.
The tree roots have been exposed, that's what's keeping the falls together.
The education.
Yeah, and just how it's not like something that we're excited.
But many
about.
people there don't read e-news that are coming to the
Yeah.
falls. I mean, you can drive by there and, the license plates
Yeah.
are what, Florida, Texas, Mass.
But they could be getting it from one of the
Right.
hotels or something they stay at, but just the same, just get it out there. I mean, again, it's like, if you have 1,000 people and you can control 400 of them, well, 40% is pretty good.
And you can see a lot, you can see a lot from the parking area.
Yeah, well, that's the other part, it's
Yeah.
like, the falls are,
Accessible,
there.
yeah.
you can walk up the road.
Or down the road, yeah.
That's right, you could park at the top, get dropped off and walk downhill. Why wouldn't I have thought of it that way?
Yes, so did you have any comments on that, Tom? You're muted.
It's good to know.
No, I haven't been to the falls, so I can see the pictures that everyone sent, but I haven't looked at it. I mean, it sounds reasonable, but I don't have anything specific to add. Unless there was like a way to get people to dogs, if they really wanted to see it, that could stay open. That would be like the spot, but I don't, since I haven't been there, I don't know if that's easy or hard. Like give them the one choice rather than no choice.
There's ice on the rocks.
Yeah,
But you can see it on the walkway coming up. You just can't get out to the section below the bridge.
Okay.
What did Teddy have to say? It sounded like I heard Teddy in the
Yeah.
background. What's Teddy
He's got
what's he got to
better-
say about the
he's
falls?
got better info.
Tom liked that. Okay, I guess if someone wants to make a motion,
I made the motion.
is there a second?
So would we have, I'll second the motion, and we're recommending to the selectmen that we temporarily close certain access points,
Certain trails.
certain trails at Jackson Falls until full assessment can be made. And do we want to say something about like ecological and human safety?
To protect the root systems
Yeah.
for the trees, yeah. Which have been exposed by the floods.
Yeah.
And all of our trails have been washed out. I mean, the Forest Service does this, National Park Service does
Yes,
this.
I mean,
it's
Yeah.
normal.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate.
Okay,
And it's a temporary
helpful.
closure.
Yeah.
It's not a permanent
It's
closure.
also not high visitation season either, which I think will be helpful as far as.
Yeah.
But it's gonna take us a while in the spring or early summer before this is fixed.
right, so recommend temporary closure of trails until further assessment for protection of tree roots and public safety. Okay, all those in favor?
All right.
Opposed? No? Thank you. I guess, is there anything other specific to that we need to discuss, or can we move on?
In what regard? Just the Jackson
Just
Falls?
Jackson Falls. I went a little light knowing that we would be talking about a lot of
Yeah.
things, so,
No, I think that's,
okay. So I think we can move on from that. I did not get to the VRAP requirements this month, and I can send that mail out again, and we can address that next month. And if you've not submitted your conservation easement reports, those need to be submitted by the 15th. If you need any assistance, let me know. There's no wetlands. And the MOA review for the Dundee Community Forest. Just got a message from, and I can't remember who that was from, but Bartlett Select Board is discussing that and discussing the matter of having an additional at-large members was the main substantive change from what had originally been proposed. I went to the select board meeting where they were going to discuss this, and they did not discuss it.
So what's the change here? That
It's gonna go from 12 people on the board to 15, I think.
Having an at-large community member.
from each town, so Bartlett and Jackson.
Which I have a little problem with as far as the at-large, because they're not responsible to anyone. They can just be, personal opinion. So I don't know how effective that at-large person would be, but well done.
They have so it gives you the ability to
That
vote.
was brought up at the meeting, just so you know. So that-
Was it?
Yeah, that was, someone did bring that up, that mentioned that, what does it mean to not have someone who's not representing a
Right, there's somebody who's representing the selectmen. and-
So that was brought up, like, should we just have a person who has kind of their own thoughts and opinions, right? I remember someone said that at the meeting.
It doesn't seem odd when you hear it, because it's like a townsperson.
Yeah.
You're part of the community, but we all are, I guess, in a sense. But I think the part that is it, so everybody has the same power as the vote? They're a voting part of the,
Assumedly.
you know?
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, the only thing that seems weird about that is that somebody could select somebody and have an agenda, you have an additional, like, at-large, yeah, well, of course we selected him, he's in alignment with what we want, so that's the only part that, but I guess that's naturally what happens.
Well, the way I read this, and I agree with Dick, just a member, who's gonna pick it? There's no clarity in how that's gonna happen.
Doesn't the board, does it say the board picks its own members?
Yes, it was unclear who would do it, but the management board would vote. I feel like the members, the representatives from the town would nominate someone to do it, and the management committee would vote on that at-large member's inclusion. Which is how I read it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not, bullet C on the management committee sort of suggests that. My guess, and Dick, you've been on the select board before, so you know this. My guess is the selectmen would rarely attend these just because they have so many other commitments. This may not be their highest priority. It would seem to me that this might read a representative of the town of Bartlett or their designee, and then you have the same thing for Jackson. So that if a selectman decide, a lot of times if you have the selectmen on, but they're never there, it's essentially no representation from the town, but allow the selectmen to pick who the representative would be for the town and get away from whoever the committee's just gonna pick at random
So
from the
you're not,
committee.
you're not at large, yeah.
Yeah, that would be my suggested change, but
That's essentially what it is now, because Peter Benson is the selectman's rep.
Yeah.
So there is not a member of the select board sitting on the committee, so,
Back up for him.
yeah. So I was thinking, since they hadn't discussed it yet, I can send them our thoughts on it, which sounds like,
yeah. I think the other problem you're gonna run into is, it's nice to have a lot of people on there because it's very representative, but it's very difficult to get anything done if you get a committee that's 15 or 20 folks out there.
Wow, sorry.
Yeah, just by, everybody's had a chance to say their 2 minutes around the table, you burned up the evening.
so, is there any consensus that, I'm not opposed to it, I don't particularly strongly support it, other than,
I would propose that you not support it if it comes to that, if it comes to the vote where you had input.
And since we're not a signatory to the MOA, it'd be a select board call, so we would just be making a
A
recommendation.
recommendation.
I don't think we're a signatory to that.
No, it's not.
Yeah. So, does anyone else have any feelings on that, or?
I think I'm in the same boat as you, in that I'm not like, I
Yeah,
don't feel particularly strong, I mean, I'm not
right.
feel super strong about it either way. I mean, I agree that I don't like boards that have a lot of people because you don't get anything done.
Right.
But I don't know if I don't know if I feel strong enough about it to stand up and, you know, I mean, we could at the next, I guess, so I suppose you could, because I'll be representing Zoo Mountain, but I suppose the next quarter meeting, whenever that is, we could voice, like, hey, the Jackson Conservation Commission feels like we would not like to have an at-large or whatever. Because I'm trying to think of like what,
And how do you,
like where do we voice that opinion?
Right.
Is that it voiced at the selectmen, is it voiced at the quarterly meeting?
and what do you say when, if pushed to, what's your reason behind that? Like, is there, you confident in saying what that is? That's the other part. I mean, I think in like in a perfect world,
That's what
sure,
Bennett said.
if you get the perfect person and they are amazing,
Right.
how great. But that's why wisdom is what it is. You know, it's like experience. But I don't have strong feelings on it. I think it's that person could be the best person potentially, or they could be a person that's,
Spoiler.
you know, has an agenda. But I
I-
don't know. To be optimistic, I would wish for the best.
Hope for the best, plan for the worst.
That's right. Keeps you alive.
I mean, overall, I think it's a good document, but I think, you know, the governance part, at least the suggestions I'm making, is more to try to make it so it's really functional, as opposed to, I'm opposed to this agreement.
Yeah, and, I mean, just kind of the bullet point of what Peter's argument was, that varied voices are valuable, especially since it is a community, or how it's framed as being a community forest, trying to incorporate all of the community. And my only critique of that is that it's a very small self-selecting pool of people who would be not already in that room. And
Well, it's a pseudo community forest because community forests are normally owned by the town. Whereas this is not owned by the town. What you really have is Upper Saco Valley Land Trust wants to manage it with the perspective of the towns, and they're setting up something which is very good to do, but it's not truly a community forest the way that I understand them.
Well, I think it's how they fundraised,
Yeah,
you know.
right. There's nothing wrong with it, it's
No.
just, but like if you looked at like the Mylan community, yeah, it's the Dunbar
I
Mylan.
know.
Yeah, those are typically owned by the town, and then they have a subcommittee that helps with the governance, the same as we help manage Prospect Farm. But we're, you know, in the end, we recommend, we can't, you know, make orders for these areas.
okay. Well, I guess it sounds like we're a little ambivalent to negative on the suggestion, so I'll pass that along to the select board. Unless there's any objections, you have anything to say, Tom?
No, I mean, functionally, if you're worried about an outsider getting in, it does look like you have control, because that large person has to be nominated by the Conservation Commission and the Select Board representative. So to get in, you have to be nominated by the town people, and then you have to be approved by the board. So there's 2 hurdles you have to get in. And it doesn't say you have to have one, it just says there could be one. So their bullet points are 9 people, but the minimum is whatever it was, so 5 people. So I mean, I get that it's, making a bigger group, but it does look like there are some guardrails on not getting a, I don't know, whatever the concern is of someone coming in with different opinions.
Okay.
Well, I think the difference is there's two lists there. Like Tin Mountain isn't a definite, just as Jackson Ski Touring is not a definite. The first list is definite positions. The second list, such as organizations like Tin Mountain and Jackson Ski Touring, etc., are not definites. That's at the whim, and that's the difference between those two positions within that. But these are definite positions you're talking about. That committee could decide, it says a minimum of 5. It's a little odd the way it's written because it says a minimum of 5, but it lists out more than 5 positions. There's a little bit of disconnect.
Right, okay. Well, I'll flag some of
Yeah.
those.
But it may be because, positions are filled too, because I know on boards I've been on,
Yeah,
you can go
yeah,
up to 15, but you only have 12 all the time.
Okay. Okay. All right, so if there's nothing else on that, I kind of had to hastily rewrite your end report
That's very good.
to incorporate flood damage into our narrative. If you've had a chance to review that or have any suggestions or comments, I'll probably just go through it one more time and then send it to Julia this week, so.
But you did a good job on that.
Yeah, Ben, I went through it, and I think it's really complete. The only question I had is it too long? Because, typically in the annual report, the Highway Department Conservation Commission is more or less a page or less. My guess is this would be multiple pages, and I didn't do a word count on it. I'd be happy to try to go through it quick tomorrow morning and just try to pare it down.
Sure.
I don't know how others feel, but typically if you look at
Yeah, no,
it.
you're right, it's usually like 1 page.
Yeah.
I've seen it, yeah. I haven't had a chance to read it, so I don't have it.
So I just
Initially, I
stuff
would.
about you and
It's mostly that.
Yeah. I would, if it's good, I would support it as written, personally.
I mean, one way to pare it down is just take the pros and put it into bullet points.
Okay.
Something like that.
Yeah, we can change the format and let it be.
I mean, the irony is the longer it is, the fewer people will read it.
That's what we're going for.
Yeah. No, I think just the opposite. You want them to read it.
I don't know, if it's good, you'll read it.
Yeah.
If it's not good, you'll pass it.
Okay.
It's not
Well,
like a novel.
I just like it if there is one summary, I guess the operating, it's a summary of all of the minutes that we have.
Yeah.
And so I think is a good representation of our work and what we've discussed. And if that's the only opportunity you have to review what we're doing, I'd rather have a more complete document that.
I support that.
And I'm fine with that.
Okay. But I can go through and edit.
Yeah.
Bring the word count down. Okay. Anything else?
Like new business?
Any new business?
Just for, let's say, our mindset for the next year, add water quality to the things that we discuss and try to do something about.
It tied to any specific bodies of water or just in general?
Townwide, wherever, come up with ideas for riparian rights and, or education of people that live along, everything, Great Brook, any of it, anything that feeds into the tendrils that go out. But I think that it'd be a terrible thing to end up with, Jackson, nice place, don't drink the water. or don't swim in the water. So, I think it's something that, we as a conservation commission should discuss. And, if we have a way to do something, let's do it.
I would tend to agree. I think on that note, sort of, if we could educate people about what they can do to minimize the runoff on their own properties. Because you just see it so often. If you
Whitney
run-
Pond swimming are closed because
Yeah, I mean, if you run, if you ride, or bike, or anything on the road after storms, it's appalling to see how quickly the ditches fill in with sand and silt, and the road washes out. The same driveways always dump onto the.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like people probably don't want that happening.
I
But
have arguments with the town all the time, and Gary's so nice, but basically, my argument is don't make the ditches so deep, because then the roads cave in. I mean, you should see the erosion on my property, but I've been sticking woody debris in there. It catches all that sediment that comes down, raises the bottom of the ditch, so then the sides aren't so acute, and you don't have so much erosion. I'm not an engineer, but I'm just looking at it and saying, these are things that people can do.
right.
See, you're just trying to be logical.
Wow,
Actually, I can
it's
get-
trial and error.
the drainage that they put in from Christmas Farm in up in that steep area, they really put in stuff that was of the right
Yeah,
size,
it actually worked.
and it worked.
I mean, it's unbelievable. If they hadn't done the
You would not
upgrades
have
this
been able to
year,
drive
we
on that
wouldn't
road.
have had a
But isn't
road.
it-
No, there would have been no black.
No roads.
And that's a case of not, it's more than ditching, when you've got fall line roads, which is what that is. And, unfortunately, Jackson's got a lot of these roads, just as a Forest Service on South Hall and North Hall, fall line.
Yeah,
There's no water bar, the water gets over into those drainage ditches, and unless you put something in there that can take that force and those
Yeah.
big blocks of granite they put in, I mean, there was damage, but
Isn't
Right,
that
it
just
I don't know,
like-
if they hadn't
It was
fixed that the way
amazing
they
to watch
did.
it actually work after all
Yeah.
the years of just like,
yeah.
you don't even want to watch it. Like,
But-
oh, that's not going to work.
But isn't it just kind of a check dam? Am I wrong? Isn't that just gonna fill the sediment over time?
Yeah, but that's like, kind of like saying,
There was no sediment that was gonna get caught there, the fines
Yeah.
were gonna go, I mean, the water moving down that steep hill was moving at wicked velocity and erosion. I mean, I was impressed at how well that stood up.
me too. Yeah.
Because Gary's put some of those in up on 10 line, and so I'm just watching to
Yeah.
see the
I-
Yeah,
I was
they're-
impressed
they're-
at how
They're
well
meant
they
to be maintained.
Yeah.
It's a maintenance
I
issue.
don't know how you maintain. I mean, the dirt goes, how do you maintain them? The dirt goes in and then
You dig it back out, take out the fines, and you put your rocks back. I mean, I have a property that I have, we have a new road going in after every storm. We shovel out all the check dams so that they can fill back in and catch the sediment. And if you don't, then the water just goes over it. So it's maintenance.
Maintenance.
I've got a item number 1 for your water quality. The highlight of the flood for the grammar school 3rd and 4th grade was watching the porta potty float by. So the kid was like, "There's a porta potty out there," and they're all at the window.
Where was
Which
it
one
from?
was that?
I think it was the one that was down from the
Yeah,
baseball
'cause
field.
Oh,
Yeah, because it ended up in the,
It,
I think in the corner.
yeah, it ended up like far in the corner.
Of course,
the
that
soccer
doesn't
post
really-
there went
And
down.
the soccer post went down as well, and they said they were sitting there, and it was like,
So
That
Berlin,
doesn't-
you saw what happened up in Berlin.
yeah.
They're dumping raw sewage into Androscoggin right now because their water mains from the sewage system got washed
And
out.
I heard they washed out the chips too for the biomass.
Did it?
Imagine how many chips that is. I think we lost some chips. Imagine when the biomass retainer loses its chips.
And Vermont lost, 60% of the vegetable crop?
Yeah.
Not washed away, but contaminated
Yeah.
from septic
Yeah.
deterioration.
Right. Well, when the last time that the Thompson House had their garden, I think it was when I'm spacing his name on. Well, you couldn't all that food when they planted it. I think it was Irene. They couldn't sell or harvest any of it because of potential fecal. So all that food just stayed in the fields. That's why that was like that before the new owners. But happens. Yeah. Vermont got a different level. That's like
Yeah.
if you haven't seen the Montpelier
They were lucky they did not have ice in the Winooski
Yeah.
River, as were we. If we'd had ice in the river, that would have been catastrophic.
Yeah.
They would have taken out the stone bridge.
Eagle Mountain Golf Course almost put their lower bridge down into it.
Yeah, right. Surprise, right?
I don't know if you've seen that, the lower bridge on the Eagle Mountain Golf
Oh, yeah.
Course, but yeah.
Oh, yeah,
It's, fortunately, the irrigation hosing held it,
right.
or that would have,
Yeah, but a bit of going down the river.
Yeah, well, my free trial
That's your time.
is running out.
Sounds like a good,
I'd make a motion.
Tom, wanna make a motion?
Actually, is there anything from Frank?
No.
Yeah, Hank?
Have a good meeting.
Yeah.
What's going on, need?
Make a motion.
I'll make a motion that we go on to meet.
All in favor?
uh,
Opposed?
so your good wife